Hey, True Believers, Englentine here. So this came out. It's on ICV2. It's called Something Has to Change. It's from Bill Boyle of Coliseum Comics. Just so happens, Coliseum Comics, that is actually my shop. However, this looks like it's not the Kissimmee shop because there would be two Hulks and so forth. So, yeah, I actually worked for Phil Boyle a while back. As a matter of fact, it was a long while back in the late 80s, as a matter of fact. So it's about 30 years now it's been since I worked for him. I've been a loyal customer ever since, though, and always looked forward to stopping in. He, not so much Phil, but I used to talk to Brendan a lot, his brother, quite a bit, because he would be running the store. He took over Kissimmee, so I would see him most. And so, yeah, there's a bit of a relationship with Coliseum Comics and myself. Not that I was a good employee. Actually, one time I was late opening the shop because I fell asleep on my roof. I was in an attic bedroom, and I would go out on the roof and listen to music, and I actually fell asleep. And yeah, that was very strange. And they said nobody ever came up with that excuse before. Not an excuse. It was a reason that actually happened. Well, anyway, Phil, he's just grown this one little store. Where I worked for him, it was just this tiny little store in this tiny little strip mall with like only 4 or 5 shops, and it was a horrible part of town. One time when I was working there, I closed up to go grab some lunch, and there was a hooker that propositioned me between the shop and the Wendy's I was walking to. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I am definitely digressing. Phil goes on to say, this starts off, I should say. Phil Boyle, whose Coliseum Comics chain is the largest comics and games retailer in the Southeast, has shared his thoughts on what he sees as the top 8 problems in the comic business, his solutions, and what publishers can do. Joe Field recently laid out some ongoing concerns for retailers that I agree wholeheartedly with. I have been doing my own analysis of sales over the last several months because, as Joe put it, something has got to give, or something has to give. I've spoken to several publishers about these concerns, and though they all seem to have sympathetic ear when it comes to the plight of retailers, those fettered by large corporation policies will not likely be able to change things without some major catalyst. As a quick background, comic retailers are currently buying under a plan that, though tweaked over the years, is essentially the same buying structure that was put on the table by Phil Selig 46 years ago. As one of the supposed old guard at my August 35 years, even I wasn't selling comics when this deal was struck. To add fuel to the fire that were mired in old policy, Diamond's monthly printed discount terms are based on sales data from 2006. I don't see this as a Diamond problem as much as a problem that no publisher wants to be the one to put their foot down and make changes that need to be made. Fleecing the retailer base is wonderful for the bottom line until everyone can't pay their bills anymore. I remember we talked at MegaCon for just a little bit. We started off talking about identity politics in comics, and he brought some of this stuff up as well. So I'm wondering if he's gonna tap into some of what we were talking about. I understand the pressures, he says, that publishers have to make sure that the bank account is full at the end of each quarter. I get the whole variance adding to the bottom line and pricing structures are safe for publishers. I understand that Diamond only has the funds that their margin allows, so all the wants of retail side of things simply can't happen. I also know that Steve Jeppe has personally, he owns Diamond outright, buoyed many stories through difficult times. I get how all these moving parts work, but I see plight of retail stores going into 2019 as more than just Amazon and Inui when it comes to actually reading, when video and Kindle are also available. Everyone likes to think we're all partners in bringing comics to the masses. Here's the truth. Despite the best intentions and love of comics by the folks at Marvel and DC, Disney and Warner Brothers, AT&T, they're not comic book fans beyond what it amounts to on the bottom line. But we need a change, and not a small incremental thing. We need a complete sea change. Per above, we need a catalyst, as everything will continue like a proverbial frog in a warming pan of water. And here's what I'm changing in 2019. Now, here's something I like about this, because I've said it before. And, sometimes I felt bad about it because, one of my best friends in this community, I should say, and online on YouTube, is a FEISTY fan. And she runs a comic book shop. But I have said many times, it's also the fault of the comic book shop. I understand you need to keep up, but you can't keep up past your ability to do so. So some of the comic book shops that go out of business, I wonder, how much of it is their own practices. Oh, we want to get that variant, so we're buying way too many of one book to get it. In the end, it's just not worth it. As a matter of fact, I remember NERDROTIC channel mentioned something about this where he said he would tell a customer, he would when he opens a shop again, that I'll get it for you. He's just not ordering it. Like, he'll find it and buy it from someone else, and the price will be lower than if he had to order all of the books Marvel wanted him to order. Anyway, let's go on. Number 1, the problem. 90% of the books coming off the stands at the end of their shelf life have zero value as back issues. After 3 months, many books become box filler and dead items that take up space. No one is looking for a 3-issue miniseries 6 months removed unless it features a new character and there's rumors circulating about his or her inclusion in a movie that was possibly green-lit. Between February and October, we had it cost nearly $100,000 in books that were taken off the stands. 60% of them were instantly unsellable. 30% will languish if they're still here in 3 months. My solution? We're looking at each title, and any that fails or falls in that 90% range is slated for sellout. We used to order for backstock and still will on that 10%, but the rest are now on their own. This means we cut to obvious sales. We can chase higher sales, but the diminishing profits to do so are no longer viable. I estimate this will put, at a minimum, $20,000 in my pocket each quarter. And this goes on to say something that Captain Frugal was saying about the higher price of comics being, it's not only hurting the customer, but it's actually hurting the retailer. Phil here is backing that up. And by the way, if you are not subscribed and watching Captain Frugal's videos, you are doing yourself a disservice. That is a fact. All right, so he goes on to say what publishers can do. Returnability is only part of the solution. With every issue declining after number 1, retailers cut their orders to keep ahead of the precipitous drops. We can't afford to put $2 cost into stocking one extra issue of everything in fleeting hopes of selling one more copy. It's roulette, and it's betting on black or red. One you win, the other you lose. So orders continue to drop. There's no seating copies on the stands. Here's the pitch. Give us a declining match 2 and then sell us anything above that for 50 cents. Yeah, I know the math. The first copy costs $10,000. The second and every copy thereafter is 15 to 22 cents. So meet us halfway and sell us seed copies. It removes the need for returnability, puts more books on the stand, and helps retailers with cash flow. Without this, the sliding sales scale towards zero is hastened and more titles get canceled. Which, in all honesty, I've got to say this, Phil, at this point, that is a welcome thing. I mean, even DC, on average, puts out 15 to 20 titles a week. Marvel sometimes gets as high as 30. So I am okay with, I mean, Marvel, that means, Marvel might have 120 books out every month. Yeah, if they want to cancel a few, I'd be okay with that. Number 2, the problem, reboots. No surprise, but every jumping on point creates in its wake a jumping off point. There's a greater concern, though, continuity. No, not continuity of Spider-Man wearing a hat on page 3 when he had his head cut off on page 2. Continuity of series collecting. This industry was built on reading and collecting comics. When you reboot, what has gone before is no longer valid, which contributes to the 90% mentioned in problem number 1. With the prevalence of reboots, fans no longer feel invested as they know that nothing is any more permanent than the current creative team. My solution: keep making excuses. That's not really a solution, which is why this one is solely on the publisher. What publishers can do: commit to at least a 5-year plan. Even if creative teams change, the numbers shouldn't, so that some continuity of series is in place. Captain Marvel. Yeah. I'm sorry, I said Captain Marvel. Being what are they on their ninth? Their ninth #1 is coming out. Nobody likes Captain Marvel. Marvel. It's like the Booster of comic book characters. Nobody likes you, Booster. Nobody likes you, Captain Marvel. And we're all looking at Captain Marvel, the movie, to be the first one to bomb. I'm looking at it not like a bomb, but like it's going to be Solo, a Star Wars story bomb. It's still going to make $200 million, but compared to cost and the rest of the Marvel Universe, bomb. The number 3, the problem. First issues. This is the most abusive part of comic book ordering. Let's define a first issue before I go on. Any issue ordered with no previous sales data for the title. If it's weekly, every issue ordered before we have a week of sales data on #1 is a #1 for ordering purposes. If it's a one-shot, it's a #1. If it's a #1, it's a #1. Just clarifying on that one. Every #1 these days seem to be a double-sized or a larger than normal size issue that adds $1 or more to the #1 cover price, exacerbating retailers' exposure. My solution. If it's a weekly series, it's a Predatory publishing and it gets subs-only orders. 0 for Stan's sellout. In 3 months, no one will remember it anyways. If it's a horribly priced #1, we order to sell out. There will be a second printing if it's that great of a book. We're done chasing incentives. We'd rather chase profits. On one-shots, we order subs and what we feel will be a guaranteed sellout, which is what we think we might sell minus 20%. This goes for any second issue as well that we have to order before #1 hits the stands. Now, what publishers can do. Set a reasonable number based on similar books, which should not be 3 times of one of the mega crossover events. Anything above that, sell it to us at the aforementioned 50 cents. It would provide more sell-in and more copies of the book on the stands. If we don't have #1, then our chances of selling #2 fall to immeasurably low numbers. That's something I've noticed. Like X-Men Black. Let's take X-Men Black for a while. X-Men Black was a miniseries that came out late last year. And there was 4 issues? I believe it was Magneto, Mojo, Mystique, and I think there was one other, but I may be wrong. But anyway, it was a miniseries, but it was all #1. It was Mojo #1, Magneto #1, but it was all X-Men Black. It was a miniseries completely filled with #1s. It's ridiculous. It's freaking ridiculous. The wedding issue of Fantastic Four, which I enjoyed, was too damned expensive. And it was wedding issue #1, so I can absolutely agree with him here. It's getting ridiculous. It's ridiculous for retailers, of course, and of course for the fans. The high prices alone is what drives away most fans, I'm sure. The rebooting is probably #2, like you said. A jumping on is a jumping off as well. Number 4, the problem. Special covers from issue to issue. This is Predatory Publishing. 14 covers on #1, 4 on #2, one of which is a Scotty Young variant and one of which is a Promotion of the Month cover. Number 3 has 1 cover, but 4 has 3 covers again. This is an obvious ploy to keep retailers from gauging actual interest in the title, and it inevitably leads to unsold books on the stands without some degree of stability, we're ordering blind. My solution. Ordering to sell out than ordering blind sounds much better from my financial end. I'll be cutting to absolute sales levels. Before anyone cries that I'm being the maker of my own low sales prophecies by cutting orders, let me assure you that each of my stores will continue to carry the iconic characters and books championed by the staff. Most fans can't afford to buy all of the comics they want, so removing the 4-issue spin-off barely sequitur to any miniseries from their options will actually be a relief. I hate making fans think that they need to buy every nuanced tie-in when they can enjoy the book that they read and are excited about without muddying that experience. I completely agree with this. As a matter of fact, I would have to say that Infinity War is probably the worst perpetrator of this particular crime. I mean, not only has Infinity gone on since last year, through all its incarnations leading up to war, it had 52,000 different crossover books, Same with Spider-Geddon. It's ridiculous. It's a 5-issue crossover, yet it's got 72 different crossover issues? No. So anyway, he goes on to say, what publishers can do. Cull the stand-filling minis. I know bottom line and more immediate bottom line right now, but you're killing the market, which means bottom line tomorrow will be worse. Number 5, the problem. Discounts. I have all the expected expenses for business labor is on the rise. Insurance costs have skyrocketed. After 7 years of double-digit growth, sales have been mostly flat over the last 2 years. Prices go up, but it just means fewer comics sold for the money. The math is I can no longer allow publishers space at 50% non-returnable discount. The sales tail is too short, and the variables are too many to accurately gauge sell-through. I have 2,000 dedicated fans of all things geeky coming through my doors a week. You get access to them, my smiling staff, my well-lit stores, and our reputation as a great comic store. I'm paying a lot to provide that. You have your expenses. I have mine. That Marvel can sell recent $4.99 books to Walmart that go 3 for $5 means that the cost of these books are substantially cheaper than what they could be sold to us for. My solution. Subs only on non-returnable books that are 50% or less discount. We have so many books to choose from now that I can literally cut 40% of titles and almost no one will notice. As breadth is a recipe for diminished returns, fewer can make better. Make me need to carry your product. Now what the publishers can do. If you can't exceed 50%, give me free incentive copies to make up for it. 1 out of 5, not even a special cover. Same cover is fine, preferred. Buy 5, get 1 more free. If I'm buying non-returnable, the conversation needs to start at 60% with the incentives for a growing market. I got to tell you, this is why I love Phil Boyle, man. The man knows business, and the man says, look, this is my business. I've got to keep it running, and that means sometimes I'm going to have to say no to the bullshit. And right here, he's saying no to the bullshit. Serious. That's what I'm telling you. I dig this guy. I dig this guy. He and his brother, kick-ass comic shop owners, man. Number 6, the problem. Books without a market. If I'm selling less than 10 copies as a chain of 8 stores, then it's subscription only. When carrying books of lower sale titles, we only had 73% sell-through over 6 months for a 30% profit. As such, books are selling pretty much only to special orders. When a customer drops the title, we eat it. My solution? Subs only on low sale titles. I'll be raising this to 15 copies after the first quarter. What publishers can do. If a book is shipping and my customers don't know about it before they come into the store, then it's just another book on the stands. Many creators do a wonderful job of sending customers after their work. Too many launch unknown. Promote. Give me an incentive to carry number 2 as number 1 is too often a speculator-driven sale. Do everything you can to keep a book from falling from that threshold, and we'll do the same at our end. Once it goes below 10 copies right now, we stop tracking it, which means it's on death watch. And this just goes to what I've been saying. I can't believe in a day and age where we've got a place to promote comics and the big screen, you'd hardly see a comic book advertised anywhere. And this is what he said. It's not his job to advertise your product, Marvel. And I don't know why I'm putting it on Marvel, but I'm putting it on Marvel for some reason. It could be on DC, I guess. But yeah, and for them too. There's just no reason why you shouldn't be promoting your product. How about a DC comic book commercial on Arrow or something along those lines? I don't know. Anyway, it just seems to make sense if you promote, but all you ever see, actually all I ever saw for the last 40 years, with a rare exception, are advertisements in the comic books or the comic book related magazines. And that's an audience you already have. Number 7, the problem. Rushed and inconsistent scheduling. The publisher had delays, so we don't see a title for 2 months, and then we see 3 issues in 5 weeks. This may help the publisher's bottom line, but it destroys our sales tail and diminishes sales. My solution: when this pattern occurs, I'll automatically assume the burnout from overexposure is going to cost us 10% of our readers. I'll be making those cuts FOC. What publishers can do: if you're late, suck it up. Don't make us retailers pay for your problem. Yes, now can we get a whole bunch of retailers behind Phil on this where they just kind of stand up and say no freaking more? This is what we need to hear, man. Come on. Rah, Phil freaking Boyle, man. Number 8, the problem. Promo items. I love nice promo items. Customers love them to some degree, but even the nicest postcard is often found in the trash can right outside the store. Customers are overwhelmed with advertisements. Some look for those that target them and react. The problem is, publishers have a broad brush promotional item and then want to sell it to us. My solution: nope, not paying for your promotions. You're selling us non-returnable product with limited information and then you want to charge us to promote it? Nuh-uh, not happening. Send us the promo items at no cost, and if it's going to raise my sales, I might give you free counter space or free labor to bag stuff them. What publishers can do. When I opened Coliseum of Comics, I did it on my own dime and didn't realize a profit for several years. Publishers seem to want to put out a new comic book to instant profit. This is a broad brush statement, but we're talking about broad brush promos. Give us a minor co-op budget to print our own flyers. Co-op can take the form of funds, added discounts, or added product. So let's face it, we're not exactly partners, but we're all sitting at the same buffet, but the crumbs at the retail end of the table seem to be dwindling. We need to be partners. So some could survive via online and mail order, but far too many people would lose their livelihood if another 500 stores close. There's a point where the system in place cannot be sustained by the surviving entities. I have 12 years of new comic sales data, but I look at last issues when ordering comics as there is no pattern to the free fall. If this doesn't disturb you, it should. I am a single voice, but I am not alone in my concerns. And they then back it up by saying the opinions expressed in the column are solely based on the writer. I don't own a comic book shop, but I figure if you do, this is a rally cry. This is something to copy, in all honesty. You know, you gotta watch out for your business. You cannot watch out for Marvel's. Marvel is going to be fine. And whatever element they take, if they go only trade paperbacks like some people said, if they go only digital like some people said, they're going to be fine. It's the comic book shops, it's the collector shops, whatever you want to call them, the Funko Pop stores that sell comic books nowadays. Coliseum of Comics, I go in there, I see that their back issues selections have shrunk. Their new book stand has shrunk compared to what it used to be. And they're selling a lot of games. They're selling a lot of Funkos. They're selling statues. They're selling every peripheral around the comic book a lot more than they used to. And that's how Phil's been able to keep alive. Well, I'm assuming. I'm not a businessman. I don't have a look at his books, but he's definitely diversified. He brings in the gamers. My daughter and brother went and played Dungeons & Dragons the night of this recording. The thing is Marvel and DC, they're going to be fine. So you don't have to worry about their bottom line. Worry about your own. If I owned a comic book shop, like I said, this is a motherfucking rallying cry. But that's just my opinion. What is yours? What do you think of what Phil says here? What do you think of what he thinks are the problems? What do you think of what he says are the solutions for his shop and the publishers? Love to hear your opinion in the comment section below. Also, if you like this video, please click like, share to get word out about the channel. And of course, if you haven't done it already, hit subscribe and the notification bell. That's what YouTube pays attention to. Sometimes. Also, this is the way I'm trying to make a living, so if you don't mind helping out, because YouTube also took away my live stream capabilities, go on over to Patreon, drop $1 in the till, helps keep the lights on, and helps keep making videos for you. Thank everybody who's already done that, and to everyone, all of the true believers, thank you very, very much for watching.